I think the most expensive thing that any one of the kids had, including myself, was a bicycle. And Lord, we used to put miles on bicycles all over the place. But we did get into a period of time where a lot of us were building our own toys to play with on the street. And these were little vehicles made out of soap boxes with bicycle, or baby coach wheels, and a rope tied to a steering mechanism on the front. And if one person built one of those, shortly after that, all the rest of the kids would have them. It just spread like a disease through the town. And there was another thing we used to make, called them scooters. And you take a 2x4 and you take a roller skate and pull it apart. And put 2 roller skate wheels on each end of this thing. And an orange crate stood up in the front of it that you could hold on to. You could nail a board across it for a handle. And we could put a good many miles on those things too of a night. Of course, they were complete, resplendent with a pair of tin can headlights with candles in them. So that was for our night running. And to us, our real great night would be to take those things out to the high ridge, as we call it, near the school. And we'd push those things up on top of the bridge, and then there wasn't as much automobile traffic in those days as there is now. You could have the roads pretty much to yourself. And so that we would come down in droves down the high bridge. That to us was, to our idea, that was a lot of fun. As we got older, the remnants of the shad skiffs, I can remember, I'm sure a lot of other people in town can, the net drawing, the frames they had down near, later there was a sawmill built down in that area, but prior to that, they used to pull the shad skiffs up there for the winter on the shore on Battery Park and dry the nets down there. And then as I began to approach the teenagers, the shad industry was waning, and there were very few shad skiffs left. One of them in particular ended up named the Helma, H-E-L-M-A. It was Jim McHugh down on 4th Street bought the thing. And then we were just at the right age where we got together, and we built a cabin on Jim's boat, with his permission, of course. Jim was very cooperative with us. As a matter of fact, I think he was, although he was a good bit older than we were, I think he was a big teenager himself. He went with us all the time. We built a cabin on it, and we were able to put many long and glorious days in on the river with Jim McHugh's shad skiff until one day, 3 or 4 of us were back in school, and we blew it up. Literally, I guess I did it. I didn't. That needs a bit of explaining, I guess. But we had truant officers, and there was this one truant officer who took his job very seriously, and we didn't cut school very much. As a matter of fact, I think this is probably except when the circus came to Wilmington, I think this is the only time I ever did cut off school, or bag it as we called it in those days. And the truant officer got after us and was literally chasing us, and we ran for Delaware Street Wharf where Jim McHugh's shad skiff was tied up. And we jumped aboard it and cast off, and once we were 10 feet away from the dock, the truant officer couldn't do a whole lot about it. And we started the skiff up, a little 1-cylinder Harris Marine engine, and took it out in the river. And they worked on the principle that if you advanced the spark, it made the engine run faster. Well, it made good sense to me, and this little wire was stuck through the bulkhead. And my buddy Bob was laying up on the cabin right over top of this engine. The engine was inside the cabin. And I think there were, Pick Key was with us, as I can recall, Lehman Garrison, and maybe a couple of others. And we had been out there quite some time. We certainly weren't going to go back until it was time to go to dinner or supper. And so the boat was going down the river, and I was steering it, and I pulled this wire out a little bit to make it go faster. And nobody said anything. I had the thing clipping along a pretty good pace. And so I thought, well, I'll make it go a little faster yet. So I pulled it out some more, and this got a rise out of Bob. He said, look, there's a knot on the inside of that wire. Don't pull it through that bulkhead. That stops it. Don't try pulling it through. I said, okay, no problem. And so to make a long story short, to make the boat go a little bit faster, when he put his head down, I pulled the knot through the bulkhead, and that did it. I found out the hard way that if you give an engine too much spark, it suddenly goes into reverse, and this old engine couldn't do that. So the compression it built up on the instant try blew the side of the engine out. And of course the thing was spinning a great big flywheel in there, about 18 inches in diameter, and the flywheel was heavy and it wouldn't stop. And by that time the piston and the connecting rod and everything had literally disintegrated, and parts were still flying all over the cabin in there. So we kind of wrecked Jim Shad's gift that afternoon. We came back with the help of a great big old oar that was in the bottom of the boat. And rather than let the story lay there, later we confessed to Jim that it was we who did it. And he said, yeah, it really surprises me that it would be you guys on it. He knew darn well who did it. But then we went and pulled some money together and bought a 6-cylinder Chevrolet engine. And he had the smoothest running shad skiff in Newcastle. He had a 6-cylinder Chevy engine in it after that.